All right, welcome to episode 3. I love hockey. I'm joined by some very special people here. First video with Pratesh or Pretzel Moral and the great Robin Arkell. Welcome, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So, first of all, we obviously couldn't find anyone better or as good looking as Robin Arkell to start this podcast with our video. Back in India, tell us what it's like and why you're back in India, and tell us a bit of your background.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Pretzel. Back in India, obviously for the World Cup. Recently joined the German men's team, so yeah, a bit of a shift in terms of the cultures and stuff like that coming from the Indian team. But yeah, it's just been great to be back in India. Just the sort of the warmth and the friendliness of the people arriving back, and yeah, I think just sort of like reminiscing on all the good times that we had together, Chris, in Bhubaneswar. Yeah, it's just been really good, to be honest. Just nice to get back into the culture again of India, and yeah, really enjoyed it.
So give us a bit of a rundown. You started with the Indian men's national team when? How long were you there? Give us some interesting, challenging moments. So we'll get in a few more questions as we go through.
Yep. Joined in 2017, July 2017. Didn't unpack my bags for the first month I was in India, at least. I think it was probably actually longer than that because I was convinced I was going to leave. It was a challenging start in the beginning. I think for anyone that's been to India, it's sort of an overload on all your senses, I think. And I just wasn't ready for that in the beginning, to be honest. It was super overwhelming. But yeah, slowly got into it and started to really, really enjoy it. So I was here for about 4.5 years in the end, just over. Yeah, and managed to have a lot of highlights along the way, obviously. One of them was meeting the great Chris Sorella, and having him as part of the coaching group. But yeah, culminated in the Tokyo Olympic Games, which is an awesome experience. Yeah, left the Indian role shortly after that, just to pursue other opportunities, really. And yeah, lucky enough to get another opportunity in international hockey with Germany.
Fantastic. Can you give us a bit of background on your actual role? We didn't touch on that. So, yeah, what was your role with India, and what's your role with Germany at the moment?
So officially, contract-wise, I was employed as they call it the scientific advisor, which is basically the physical trainer or the strength and conditioning coach, depending on where you are. So yeah, pretty much just responsible for all the athletic development of the men's side. Oversaw the junior men's team as well at certain stages. But I think anyone that's involved in elite sport knows that your roles and responsibilities are a little bit more outside of just what's in your contract. So I was actually lucky enough to also take up some of the managerial roles on tours, which I actually really enjoyed. Just being a little bit more responsible for organization stuff, and also what I really enjoyed about that role was just being able to interact with different people. I think as the SNC coach, you get boxed into someone that's not necessarily that important, but the manager role gave me the opportunity to interact with a lot more different people, and I think I made some really good connections around the world actually through just having that role. So that was my role with India. And then with
Germany, made yourself important, I think. Is that what you were saying? I just want to get that on record.
Not at all.
No.
And then yeah, with Germany, it's just physical trainer. So purely just looking after the athletic development of the boys. And that's about it. Yep.
You say that's about it. It sounds like it will be a little bit more than just a trainer. What's a typical day for you with with your role?
Mhm. Obviously varies, but it's generally first thing in the morning, just trying to understand where the players are based on the previous day's training, and then looking at the trends in terms of what they've been up to over the last couple of days. We've obviously got a plan going into the day, but it's always nice to get an indication of where the guys are when they've woken up on the actual day. So I'll go through a bunch of sort of monitoring or wellness screening questionnaires, which they send in to me. And then it's just basically sending out reports to the medical team and to the coaches. And then having discussions with certain players that need discussions, having a chat to the coaches based on the plan for the day. Do we need to change anything, or can we go ahead with the plan on that day? We have, in the Germany role, we certainly have quite a lot of meetings. So that leads into a staff meeting where we then discuss the plan for the day in terms of training. The medical staff will then schedule any sort of treatments that need to be done. So that's always sort of the starting point of every day. And then we go into, depending on what type of training we have, either gym session, pitch session, possibly a double each day, or not each day, but a double session on a day. And then sort of around those sessions, it'll be monitoring. So if we have pitch sessions, we're using GPS technology where I'm just tracking and monitoring what the players are actually doing during that session, giving feedback to the coaches based on what sort of metrics we're hitting, what intensities and stuff like that. And then, yeah, during sessions, it will obviously just be sort of helping individual players that need any help to be done, sort of rehab players or guys that need a little bit extra. Post-session, it's then always analysis. So coming back and having a look at the data, reporting back to coaching staff, medical team, how certain players responded to the training session. And then, yeah, if there's any individual recovery that needs to be done, I'll have a few sessions with guys on an individual basis or small group basis. And then the cycle sort of starts again. Right. So, yeah. A couple of naan breads in between, obviously, while we're in India.
What's your favorite curry?
Oh, that's an interesting question in India, because as you probably know, there's so many different curries in terms of like the spices. That's right. So yeah, I mean, you don't get a butter chicken curry in India.
No, that's right.
Yeah. But outside of India, I'd probably say a butter chicken or a jalfrezi. I enjoy a jalfrezi.
Yeah.
In India, I don't actually know what they're called, to be honest, but they've got some interesting ones. Can't hear you, Chris.
No, love technology, mate. That's why you need a good SNC and a manager that occasionally turns up. So, no, all good. I can lip read, so that's just as well.
Yeah.
So I can see the room where you're staying. I'm not sure if you covered that, but it looks like you're back in the magical Triton, or the chocolate fondant specialist meal replacement. How has it been staying back at Triton Hotel?
Yeah, we're back at the Trident. So we stayed at the Trident in 2018 with the Indian team, and obviously Chris was with us at that time. So bring back some good memories. Yeah, chocolate fondant was a favorite amongst us for sure. And
well, not myself, but yours definitely.
I enjoy chocolate fondant, that's for sure.
I think, if I do remember correctly, you did send it back for being a muffin without the chocolate sauce. Can you give us a bit of an explanation on that?
Yeah. Well, if you order a chocolate fondant, you expect to get a chocolate fondant, in the sense it needs to be nice and runny. So I sent it back.
So, friends, for those that are listening in and watching, Rob and I spent a couple of years together. We were lucky enough to travel to, I'd say, excess of 15, 20 countries around with the Indian men's national team, Commonwealth Games, World Cup, which is a previous World Cup and I'm sure we'll dive into that in a minute, in 2018 in Bhubaneswar. So that was an interesting experience, to say the least, and amongst other tours, including Perth and Europe and To say we had some fun along the way is probably an understatement. But for those that were there, we worked pretty hard. They were long days, and they were long days together, let alone all the other work, analysis, video, training sessions, and everything else we had to plan. And then Robin did occasional work as well.
I told you I was the manager. I was just making sure everyone was doing their job, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Similar to a football manager. I occasionally
just delegating.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Give us a feel of the difference in, obviously, when we're in India, the last World Cup 2018. I think we had 5-6 staff. I presume Germany, you're going to need another bus just to take the staff around. Do they really know what they've got in the whole of Robin Arkell, for the experience and the workload this man? Although he's got small shoulders, he does carry a fair bit.
It's like I said before. It's obviously a big difference between the two. Not only culturally wise, but just in terms of sort of the team dynamics as well. I think it's with India we had a small staff, which I don't think is a negative at all. It was we worked really well together. With Germany, they've obviously got a different approach where they sort of silo each individual's specialization. So which also works really well. It's a professional setup that they run, and I think everyone's got pretty clear roles and responsibilities, and I think everyone can just concentrate on what they're good at doing. And I think it helps sort of add to the development or the success of the program. But it does take time to adjust, for sure. It's like I'm used to doing everything, really, doing the food, doing the organization of the transport, the hotel stuff, and obviously also the SNC stuff. Whereas now it's sort of, I can just concentrate on the SNC stuff. So in a way, that's also quite nice.
So now that you're only working 2 hours a day, what are you doing for the rest of the time?
I wouldn't even push it to 2 hours. It's probably more like 1.5.
Oh, Robin, for those treks and those that are listening, he does love a book. I know someone, like, I've got a lot of books and I read, occasionally the front cover. But I think Robin looked at them online, and India, I'm pretty sure he got the book economy, he kept it running. So, give us a couple of favourites, Robin, or what you've done. How many books do you actually had in India?
No, I've brought 5 books with me for 3 weeks. I probably won't get through all 5, but I enjoy reading. I've just finished the book Ikigai, which is the Japanese philosophy around
however you go perhaps, and finding your critical happy space, happy place.
Finding your purpose. It's all about purpose. So that was a good one. I've got the 48 Laws of Power, which I'm going to start next, by Robert Greene. I've seen a lot about that, so I really enjoy that one. That one seems to be more of like a study book, though, so it's going to take me a bit longer, I think.
I don't know how many pictures of it.
No pictures, unfortunately, but they've got a couple of big headings, so it takes up half a page. And then another one I'm almost finished is called Simplify, which is a high performance based book, which has actually been quite interesting.
Who's that by?
I can't actually remember right now.
Mate, I thought I gave you the question before. So
it's a New Zealand guy, I think, that's actually written it. So
don't talk about New Zealand on this podcast, Robin. She's a bit of a New Zealand tragic, mate. I don't hear the accent.
I can. Otherwise, as you know, Chris, probably just spending a lot of time on my Excel sheets.
I've never seen someone that likes an Excel as much as Robin Arkell, and really, obviously being an Apple man for most of it, to work with Excel as well. I thought he'd really get to Google Sheets and really push himself, but he's a bit of a master, and I'm looking forward to one day, once you've got a bit more time, or you probably do now compared to what you used to, about getting your program I'll be very interested in running through the Excel program, learning it, and then also probably pushing other people to learn.
You'll be happy to know that I've transferred to Google Sheets. So yeah, it's all about progression, personal development.
We know it, mate. Absolutely. Now, press for those again listening. We did train a fair bit. I've never seen a set of pins work so fast or as many calf raises as Robin Arkell. But we had a good trio, which I'm sure we might have to get back on this podcast in Dave. He was a physio from Sydney. Still don't know what he actually did, but a lot of different. And we would gym together and we'd have a lot of great time and challenging conversations, even occasionally over a glass of red. But Robin was a big push for the Indian team, getting him fit. I know if we look at that, we dive into the World Cup. Under our reign, I think it was, how many head coaches were you with, Robin? With me, 4?
Yeah, at least
4 head coaches or so, and to get the structure right, the scheduling right, we worked pretty hard at analysing and then also putting different formats of training, which I've been lucky enough to play around the world. There's quite a bit of initiative and creativity there, I think, which push guys to their limits, and we were able to work through, I suppose, quite a few different energy outputs, which a lot of people, even I think in Australia, after watching some of the formats, don't get to. So there's a lot from this man here himself, and lucky enough, obviously, to push the team and get them reasonably fit all the way to winning a medal at the Olympics. So it's a pretty special team that we had, and then to see some players grow. Robin pushed the guys physically. I know myself and a few others pushed them mentally. We challenged some of the guys as well, and we knew that looking at like Manpreet, Vivek, and these type of guys, I remember having a conversation with Short Ryan, who I'm sure we'll have to try to get in at some point, around him becoming the best player in the world. And there was a lot of people that didn't think that was possible. However, 18 months later, we're lucky enough to smash his face with a cake. So there's plenty of that, birthdays and celebrations. Hey, Robert?
Yeah.
So I think as a whole, it was pretty exciting, pretty interesting experience. 2018, mate, take us back to the prep and running out there in front of that Bhubaneswar crowd.
Yeah, incredible. That's what's quite nice about being back as well, like bringing back those memories. I remember playing that the quarterfinal game against Holland in Bhubaneswar, and it's a 15,000 or 16,000 seater stadium in Bhubaneswar, and I think there must have been over 20,000 people in that stadium. It was unbelievable. All the staircases and stuff going up from all the levels was packed, and it was just an unbelievable atmosphere. It's obviously unfortunate or disappointing to lose the game to Holland, because I think, as Chris had mentioned, like we'd worked obviously a hell of a hard and we'd built up a lot of good momentum going into that World Cup, and the boys were actually playing really well. We lost one game by 1 goal and we ended up finishing 6th. It's the nature of hockey and how the tournament works. But I think, we had a really good group of players and a really good coaching staff as well. And I think it was, to be honest, for me, 2018 was just the foundation that we had really built. And I think we had started just showing signs in 2019 and the beginning of 2020 before COVID hit, of sort of all that work coming together. And I think it was, although we ended up winning the medal, still I think it was a little bit disappointing that the games didn't happen in 2020, because I remember also during that camp in March, Chris, in Bangalore, it was a sort of our final big preparation camp before the Olympics, and the boys were absolutely cooking. Like we had all our systems in place. Like everyone sort of knew exactly what we're doing. The boys were super fit, and
Yep.
yeah, it was a little bit disappointing, I think, that it didn't happen at that time. But
yeah, maybe a little is an understatement. I think we would have been pushing for a different colour medal, from what I reckon.
Yeah,
and
sure.
you're right. They're just the connections, everything. There's guys that have played sort of 15, 20, 30 matches together. The core group was pretty set in its stone. There was a lot of understanding amongst the group, and we're scoring goals pretty well. We had a lot of circle entries. We were flicking goals, so they're trying to then let us shoot, and we're scoring goals from there. Guys started to get brave. Mandeep might have actually stood with his 2 feet on the ground for a shot. And just everything was going, and guys were pushing each other. And I remember, I suppose, the 2018 conversation talking about the World Cup was Rupinder Pal. And we know in India things are done a bit differently with selection and so forth. When you stood up and you read out the team, and those guys that get picked go and get their shirt on, and those that don't, you sit through in a room and you explain why you didn't get picked. And I remember the conversation after at Sandy's Tower. Shout out to Sanjeev at Old Sandy's, in front of that coffee machine that worked every once in a while. Saying and asking if he'd worked hard enough, or was he more going through the motions. And as a player that sat out and missed out on the World Cup, to then come out and say, no, I don't think I worked hard enough. And that next 18 months, the change in his mentality, his effort, and really led the team into the Olympics was, that sort of honest, open conversations that we're able to have and push that high performance environment. So I think that was an interesting experience, but a lot of great stuff.
Yeah. No, I think like obviously having been experienced a couple of other environments now as well. It's like I look back on sort of what we had in India as well, and sort of there's a greater appreciation now, I think, in terms of what we actually had in terms of the playing group and the staff group as well, and obviously the time that we had together also to try and to get those connections going with the players, to get to a point where you can have those vulnerable, open conversations with players. I think it was a crucial thing that a lot of other programs don't actually have. So like looking back on what we actually had, it's massive appreciation actually, because as you know, Chris, sometimes we're quite challenging, obviously, when you're spending sort of 250 plus days away from family
in each other's
and
pocket,
stuff like that. So
no, absolutely.
What
So
sort
looking
of,
at sorry,
I was going to ask. What sort of things do you do to build that trust with the guys to be able to have those open conversations, or sort of make it a fun and open and trusting environment? Like you said, when you're under that sort of pressure, or you're in confined spaces all the time.
Yeah, I think like one big thing with the Indian team was just for them to know that we were in it for the long run as well. I think because they'd had a lot of turnover in the past, and I think they struggled to sort of open up to coaches in the past, because they kind of had the understanding that they'd be there for a couple of months and then they would leave. So I think with the group that we had, we were together for 2.5 years or something, almost 3 years, and I think they obviously became familiar with us, and because in India we all lived together on the same campus, you're seeing each other every single day. So there's always those sort of small sort of interactions with each other, small moments where you're not always only talking about hockey, but you sort of become family. And I think once you'd sort of crossed that barrier of them knowing that we were there for them as well, to care for them, and we were in it for the long run, I think they found it easier to open up to us as well. Yeah, and I think there's a whole lot of other things just in terms of personality and stuff as well, like how you approach them, the care that you show for them, that type of stuff. And yeah, I think as any relationship, it takes time. And I think what we had was we had time on an everyday basis, but we also had time across a couple of years, and I think we got to a point where, yeah, there's a really good connection between the players and the staff group.
Yep, I would agree. When Robin says we saw everyone every day, I think that's a bit of an understatement, Mr. Robin Arkell. We would we'd have breakfast sometimes at 7 o'clock in the morning, and then go back, get changed, have a coffee, get relaxed. 9:30, head up to the training pitch. Lunchtime, or a meeting after training, into a lunch, or a meeting after lunch, into a rest period, into training in the afternoon. So I think we saw each other for probably, even the players, at least 8 hours a day. So these time shifts are quite big. I suppose I'll take it back to, we did quite a few things that made it vulnerable, made players vulnerable. If you think back to our vision day we ran, or our mission day, where we got around in circles and explained to people how other people felt and some of their background. I think that was quite interesting, and I think there's quite a few stories. One about Vivek, which is how he was in hospital and his brother had to work for him, and Christian, when he spoke about guys about both your parents and had passed. So different stories like this, which really connected with people, and you can see the emotion that people had, and I think the vulnerability of having expressed and explained your story. And I think the other point which I made it not only a high performance, but culturally a family, was, I would say, there was a lot less acceptance of bullshit, where there was a lot of constant feedback, whether it would be daily or regularly to players. There was accountability of every tournament. We took information, we took goals for individually players, lines, and also team goals, where we wanted to get for that camp. And Robin was a big push physically. I had a lot of the tactical and technical stuff, and then it was really hard for a player to not be accountable or not have a proper strategy in place when it was all written down. It was all clear. Everyone was across what was expected individually in lines and also as a team. So I think that set it pretty easily, and more of an understanding. And then when people didn't get picked or whatever else, they knew what they needed to do. So players were able to push each other. And I think with the group we had in the coaching staff, we pretty much looked after each other, and we had one sort of direction of the way we wanted to run, at least on the front side. behind closed doors, it might have been something a bit different.
Yeah. No, I think like what you mentioned there was a lot of sort of consistent feedback to the players, and I think I've also noticed that sort of in different environments as well. We actually had a lot of that feedback back to the players. We used to do those sort of one-on-one meetings as well, where they had their individual sort of get better plans. And sort of the players knew exactly where they stood from the coach's point of view, but the players could also sort of add to that get better plan in terms of what they wanted to work on and get better. And I think that also, forms a bit of a trust and a bond between player and coach, because the player can then understand, okay, the coaches have got the best interest at heart. They've put time into developing something that's going to help them get better. I think that helped quite a lot in terms of building that trust and connection. And the other thing that I actually thought we did really well was getting the players to report back to the group based on video analysis. So they would have to go away very often into small groups or individually and do the analysis themselves, and then come back and report to the group. And I think that changed quite a lot within the group in terms of players feeling comfortable. And I think it also gave them the confidence, that they knew what they were talking about and what they knew what to do when they got onto the pitch. But it just bridged the gap, I think, a little bit more. And I think sort of indirectly it helped contribute to sort of the connection in the group, the connection between the staff and players as well.
Absolutely. So let's give me a rundown of what do you think? How's the Indian team going now? How do you think that they're performing so far in the current World Cup?
Yeah, I think they've played 2 games so far. I think that England game was 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 pretty hectic. Yeah, really high energy, fast paced game. I think. Yeah, I mean they're looking pretty strong. I think. I think. Yeah, I think they've obviously got a good chance in the World Cup. They've got the backing of the home crowd, which makes a big difference. So yeah, I think they're well placed to obviously progress from the group stages. And I think there's an opportunity or possibility that Germany might meet India in the quarterfinal if results go a certain way. So yeah, that'll be an interesting matchup, obviously.
Yeah. So lucky you didn't do a lot of analysis. Is that what you're telling me? Or your part analysis for the German team as well. So you do have multiple hats.
No. Purely SNC.
Talking about multiple hats, Robin Arkell is always good for a hat.
I do enjoy my caps as well. Yeah, I won't say why either.
That's all right. I was going to talk about another cap. So give us the rundown. So obviously you didn't touch on the base that I'll throw that in there because I know you. You then went to the rugby sevens of the German team, men and women, and then to the German team. So we'll get a bit of a touch on that, and then we'll give you a bit of a wrap up if there's any more questions from Pretz on how the German team's going or going to go in the World Cup.
Yep. Yeah, so it was kind of an interesting development, really. I left India after the Olympic Games. Yeah, mainly for personal reasons, really, but I was obviously still keen to stay within high performance environment. And one of the sort of career goals that I'd always had was to try and work in a sevens program. And yeah, the opportunity with Germany sevens came up towards the end of 2021. And I thought it was a good opportunity to take. It was an opportunity for me to get into sevens and possibly progress, through different structures in the seven setup, as well as obviously giving me an opportunity to move to Europe, which is where I wanted to be. So yeah, I took the opportunity. Had a really good year with the sevens in Heidelberg. They run a full-time program, which is quite nice. They've got access to the players Monday to Friday, so you have that time to sort of work with them, which is really nice. And yeah, I think it was a good learning experience for me as well to sort of dive into a different sport again. I think there's always sort of power in diversity, when you collect experiences from 1, different cultures, but 2, different environments as well, and 3, from a different sport. So I learned a lot from it, and yeah, I can always take things that I've learned from those type of sports into my current role, I think. And obviously a big thing is it gave me an opportunity to sort of integrate into the German society, German culture, so understand them a little bit better, and move into my current role with the German hockey team. I think it's just given me a little bit of like a step up, in terms of being able to adapt to the environment and the culture and stuff. So yeah, it was a good sort of year in between, but yeah, at the moment I'm feeling quite sort of happy to be back in the hockey space. It's obviously more familiar to me, and yeah, sort of nice competition level as well, obviously.
Yeah. So just before we get into the German team and how they're going to go in this 2023 World Cup, I need to ask a serious question. How fast are those feet moving at the moment? Those fast feet.
At least twice as fast as they were 3 years ago. So
that's all I need to know.
I've actually got the fast feet in the warm up at the moment. They've come back.
I'm worried. You probably give this guy a stick or a soccer ball, but he doesn't always follow through with a soccer ball. But that's probably a story for another time. Germany, how are we going to go? World Cup 2023. Played Belgium last night. Was that correct?
Yep. Yeah,
Yes.
Belgium last night.
Score in the end for those that
2-2. Yeah, 2-2. Good game, really good game of hockey, I think. Yeah, we're 2-1 up, leading. 5 minutes to go, and Belgium managed to score an equalizer, and I think it was probably a fair result if you look at the overall game. They sort of dominated quarter one, maybe the first half, and then we felt that we were a little bit stronger in the second half. So a couple of really good opportunities which we didn't take, but 2-2. So makes the rest of the pool quite interesting now. We obviously need to beat Korea by a bigger margin than Belgium are going to beat Japan by to finish top of the pool. So it'll be an interesting sort of final game of the pool stage, and then, as you know, it's becomes a bit of a lottery after that.
So Golf Fest coming up.
We hope so.
Lovely. Freds, any questions your end?
Yeah, I got a couple actually. Your switch from hockey to rugby, obviously being Kerry, a rugby fan as well, and then back to hockey. What were some things that you took to rugby and then to help them, and then learnt from rugby and have brought over to Germany with your conditioning work that you're doing?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. Good question, actually. I think I probably would have liked to spend a little bit more time in rugby as well, just to really sort of solidify some of my thoughts and philosophies. But I think my initial approach was quite similar in terms of how I wanted to prepare the players. There's obviously a contact element in rugby 7, so that was obviously a notable difference to what I would be doing with the hockey guys. But overall, the philosophy was very similar in terms of how I wanted to prepare the players. Rugby sevens is a very interesting sport, actually. It's obviously super fast paced and high intensity, but it's really short in duration. Training sessions were often quite short. I think they were used to sort of 30-minute or 45-minute sessions as team sessions. And that was quite different for me coming from the hockey setup, because hockey is a very much a volume-based sport traditionally in terms of training. So trainings wouldn't normally be less than 90 minutes. We'd sometimes go up to 2 hours. So to cut back to 45 minutes was obviously an adjustment for me to make in the rugby setup. And then, I think one thing that I thought we could bring into the rugby setup from hockey, which I think hockey does really well, is the analysis part and sort of the meeting, the planning of training sessions, the review of training sessions, getting players involved in terms of analyzing sessions and matches, and then the feedback part. I thought that was something that, I think that's something that hockey does really well. And I didn't necessarily see that in the rugby setup as much. And then I think, coming back into hockey is probably, going the other way. It's like, do we always need to train 90 minutes or 2 hours? Like, can we have those sort of 45-minute sessions where it's really intense, short, sharp? I think for me, my philosophy stays fairly similar in terms of how I want to prepare players from a speed and power perspective. But it'll be small sort of things around, planning and game analysis. I think that that can be sort of swapped at the moment.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Who's the fittest in the team?
In the German team?
Yeah.
Who's the fittest? Based on numbers, I don't actually think I'd be able to tell you, to be honest. If I had to say a name, it's probably going to be wrong.
You haven't done it. You haven't done it long enough. Is that right?
Yeah, I've been in the role very short, so I actually haven't done any fitness testing with them. It was all done before I arrived.
Right.
So I've just come in sort of.
Fastest over 20?
Fastest. There's a couple of fast guys. One guy is Theo Hendricks. He's sort of the wing back, plays on the right hand side. He's pretty quick.
Brewer's pretty quick, isn't he?
Yeah, Chrissy Ruhr is quick. Yeah, I think Chrissy Ruhr is actually probably the quickest in the squad.
Yeah. I just have to chase him.
Yeah.
Now, just touching back on the rugby, is it true that they got rid of you because you took up more training time, more warm-up time than actual game time for the players?
Probably.
You heard it first. Yeah.
That's actually also another difference is hockey, it's normal. Chris might not say it's normal, but it's normal to sort of have 15, 20, 25 minutes of warm-up time. And it's not only warm-up time, it's athletic development time.
Oh, you've changed that since we worked together. I knew you'd have to find some form of terminology to make it worthwhile.
Yeah, you have to change it, yeah. Whereas obviously the rugby guys, if they train for 45 minutes, I can't take 25 minutes to warm them up. So, they were used to warming up for sort of 5 minutes, 7 minutes type of thing, and then they go into rugby. That is something that I changed with rugby. I did still keep my 15 to 20 minutes of warm up.
You only played 14?
And then we extended our rugby sessions a little bit longer as well. So,
yeah. For some of the junior players or new players or guys out there, what's some of the things that they can do early on before a season to help them, have a good level to ensure they minimize injuries and stuff like that? What's a couple of things that they can do, takeaways?
Yeah, I think it obviously depends on the level or age that you are at. But if you look at the sport of hockey or game of hockey, it's obviously a very physically demanding sport. So sort of the basis for any player that's wanting to play sort of a decent level of hockey is their basic aerobic fitness. They need to have a general level of fitness which is quite high, and that just means through sort of basic conditioning runs. There's a lot of popularity around sort of the longer duration efforts, but also integrating that with shorter interval based stuff. So I'd always recommend players to start there in terms of just making sure that their general fitness is quite high. And then they obviously need to have a certain level of strength as well around the really important areas for hockey, and that's going to be your lower back, hamstring, groins, and calves. That's always also a starting point to make sure that players are taking care of those things. And I think once you've got that sort of base of robustness, we call it, and general conditioning, you can start then topping it up with sort of your normal or traditional strength-based training sessions in terms of strength and power, your jumps, your sprints, speed-based stuff. So I'd say that's from like an athletic development point of view. But I think another thing that we did really well with Chris in India and is trying to integrate the physical stuff with the tactical and technical stuff. And I think that's where any level of player can also integrate that into the training as well, is making sure that they're getting enough hockey exposure as well during the preseason, because I think traditionally the thoughts have always been like block it off. So you do 6 weeks of just SNC work, no hockey, and then you suddenly shift from SNC into hockey and neglect SNC stuff, and then you go into the season. So I think that's a little bit outdated. I think there needs to be an approach where you integrating, your whole physical preparation, your tactical periodization. You integrating that right from the beginning. You're giving them the exposure of hockey, but you're also stressing them in terms of the SNC stuff. And I think that's where you get to a point where the player becomes really robust and can handle the season demands, because hockey seasons can be quite long. So
understand.
Hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. There's one little add-on question. When you say a longer duration effort, what sort of distance is, in your mind, is a longer duration effort?
Yep. I think there's a school of philosophy that likes to do the sort of 30-minute runs, 40-minute runs continuous. I think it's got a place at some point. I'm not a huge fan of it. I think if a player is like super, super, super unfit, it's obviously a good starting point. But I think once you hit a certain level of conditioning, I tend to move away from that a little bit and then concentrate on still longer duration efforts of sort of 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 6 minute efforts, where it's a continuous run, but then it's obviously at a slightly higher intensity. And the reason why I quite like those is because it often mimics the shift that you're on the pitch for. So our rotations would often be 3 minutes or 6 minutes. And then we could obviously try and replicate what sort of distance they'd be covering in the game for 3 minutes, and try and push them a little bit higher during their 3 minute effort runs that they'd be doing. So I quite like those. I think that's quite specific to the type of energy system that we need to develop for hockey.
Great. I can take that to my coach and tell him I don't need to go for 45-minute runs anymore. So thank you. Chris.
No, that's good. It's he's just giving all our secrets away, mate. My whole coaching style in about 3.5 minutes. So he's always good for that. He's great, man.
You got to back yourself to keep developing, eh?
Yeah, I know. I've been trying to do my lats and some pull downs just for, I was used to carrying them around for a long period of time.
Yeah, Chris's favorite workout, by the way, biceps and bike. But no, bench and bike, bench and bike.
Bench and bike, mate.
Put 20 minutes on the bike, and then go do a few bench presses, and then that's him. He's done.
There was a lot of deadlifting, mate. If only we'll see if we can get BA on here as well.
Is that why he likes to stretch like that?
No, he doesn't have to. But well, as I kept saying to Robin, whenever I used to go to out for a drink in a bar or wherever else, I never wore shorts, and no one ever commented about my legs. So it's got to have a good lifestyle that goes along with it.
Yeah.
So no, very true, Robin. Bike, bench, and I think I did more deadlifts, as BA will say, with you once I was retired from playing for the Australian hockey team than what I did when I was in the program. Last comments, mate. Anything from Germany? You excited for the next couple of games and rounds? And how do you think? Where are you going to find that little edge to get through to the quarters, semis, and hopefully onwards?
Yeah, I think definitely excited for the next couple of weeks. I think there's a lot of potential in the group. I think they've definitely got the potential to go quite far in the tournament, and I think we've created enough opportunities in the game so far to show that we that we've got the ability to beat teams. I think we need to get past Korea by a fairly large sort of goal difference to put us in a good position for the quarterfinals. It always makes it quite tricky to play that crossover game. So whether you want to avoid it or not, we don't know, because then you obviously have quite a long period of time off between your two games. And I think we found that in 2018, India finished top of the group. We went directly to the quarterfinals, whereas a lot of the teams that actually played the crossover games felt that it benefited them more because they had a game in between, which they felt helped prepare them then for the next game. But it's just another game that you have to win in a knockout phase, and that's obviously always tough. So I think ideally we'd want to avoid it, go straight to the quarterfinals, and then I think keep building on the performances so far. I think there's potential, and a semi-final spot would be really nice, I think, for this team. And from there you never really know. So I think it's exciting. Definitely got potential to go far. I think boys are all sort of fit and healthy as well, so we've got a full squad.
Oh, awesome, mate. And I believe you're going to have to go in a second, because you're going to make a trip to the new stadium over in
Arkell.
Arkell.
It's going to be interesting. Yeah, I've heard a lot of good stories about the stadium. It's apparently really, really good.
Well, I just got off the phone with David John, one of our other ex-workers together, high performance director, and he said that him being the high performance director of Rhodesia will inherit that. So he's pretty excited for it. And then hopefully, if everything aligns, we'll be able to see you there for the Germany, Australia, and India matches in March.
Oh, nice. Good. Yeah, that'll be really good. I think what it sounds like is that they want to try and obviously create that as the hockey hub in India, where I think they obviously all the matches will be based and stuff. So it sounds like quite a nice facility they've built in terms of trying to replicate a village sort of atmosphere, you know, with different sort of blocks of accommodation and a common eating area. So I think that's a nice concept that they've come up with.
Well, inside knowledge, apparently it sleeps 400, so that's quite a good stadium, quite a good setup for hockey from around the world. So it's exciting times.
Yeah. Yep. I'm gonna have to head off. We leave in 20 minutes, and I still need to get a bit of packing done.
But Robin will have to hand iron the rest of your shirts and polos just to make sure that they're nice and crease free. No, mate. Good luck. We'll look at getting you back on, or even later on when we run a few more of these. But appreciate all your time, content.
Yeah, thank you for your time and
a good laugh for a South African.
Yeah, thank you.
And we're looking forward to at some point maybe
for a South African.
For a South African. But I'll still go.
What is that? What is that little dig there?
No, we're still pushing along there. We'll hopefully get you and Wayne on at the same time just to band about who's better SNC as well. Yeah,
all good. Just as long as I don't have to do an arm wrestle with him, then I'm fine.
Yeah. No, I love it.
Yeah.
All right, mate.
Thanks very much, guys. Appreciate it.
All right.
All right, mate. Travel safe.
Yeah. Bye.
Cheers,
See
guys.
you, mate. Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to I Love Hockey. And you've got Pretzel and the Big Dog. Big Dog, how was that interview with Robin Arkell?
Yeah, Robin Arkell, what can you say? He's very much dedicated to the cause. Spent a lot of time. Like with that fella, I spent more time in my years in India than what I did with my own wife. So great guy, really dedicated, organised. We would say very much a detailed, granular person, and then needed explained. You know, for me, I'm a bit more of a bigger picture person. So we worked pretty well together, and you know, he'd fight for everything, and was really passionate about the guys. So get on and listen to the podcast. I think it was pretty good. He's a funny guy, and we're looking forward to having him on more often, I'd say.
Yeah, and it was really interesting to hear, obviously, a foundational member of that, or core member of the team that helped India over the last few years, you know, rise in their rankings. And like you said, he's a key part of the way guys work together and train together and built that confidence, but also improved their performances physically on the field.
Yeah, definitely. It's important about that whole physical side. You know, touched that. We did a lot of mental work and we didn't really touch on too much. But, you know, if the body and everything else is moving in the right direction, it's one less thing you have to worry about, so you can focus on executing the skills.
Yeah. So that was that interview with Robin Arkell in episode 3. Subscribe to our channel, stay tuned and up to date with the latest from us. We've got some more reviews of the World Cup and previews of upcoming matches coming up. And Big Dog, I believe you've also got a few other big names coming up for us to.
We have quite a few big names. It's exciting. Let's get out there and challenge them with a few good questions. And you know, there are a lot of people, I think, in hockey that love to be a part of it, and it's just a matter of getting them involved and making sure that and asking them. I think that's one of the interesting things with the hockey community. Everyone's happy to do it. You just need to ask.
Yeah.
Don't want to drop too many names yet,
No.
but very exciting about a few that are coming. We've got people
here,
from all over the world, all
That's
over the
right.
world. We're not just shortcut
here.
to one little area.
Yeah, that's right. We're here. We're ready, and we're ready to put them on here. All right.
Yeah. No, that's a good one. I've just got a message from one of our next ones coming in from Japan. That's been in amongst the World Cup, so pretty exciting. And I think it'll just be so much work for you, Preds, putting this together that you're gonna have to quit your normal day job and just start training up other people to do this.
I love hockey, mate. It's easy.
I love hockey. That's an easy podcast, isn't it?
Yeah.
All right. Until podcast 4. See you later. I'm the big dog and
I'm Pretzel. Thanks for tuning in.
chat to you soon.